Homosexuals in the Holocaust, the Holocaust, by Clites. More than 100,000 gay men and women were persecuted and imprisoned for their sexuality under the broadly interpreted law of paragraph 175 of the German Penal Code. About 15,000 were sent to concentration camps, where they were forced to wear the pink triangle, and as many as over 60% lost their lives. Homosexuals charged under paragraph 175 were then held at Schutzhaft, or protective custody, at a variety of prisons and detention centers, including Waldheim Prison and Fuhlsbüttel Prison. Violators of 175 were held mainly at Auschwitz-Birkenau, Treblinka, Flossenburg, Neuengamme, and Schmerneck, and also at the Dachau and Sachsen concentration camps. As same-sex bars and clubs closed and police raids on homosexuals really began and became widespread, a ton more homosexuals were identified and charged. Any man suspected of violating paragraph 175 would be questioned, photographed, and often under extreme pressure and violent interrogation, they would be forced to give names and addresses of all the other homosexuals that they knew. The homosexuals of the Holocaust can be analyzed by their treatments in camps, reasons for persecution, paragraph 175, and Richard Gruen's story. The homosexual victims of the Holocaust were treated very poorly in the camps, often even worse than other groups of prisoners. Usually identified by their pink triangle badges, homosexual detainees, which were known as the 175ers, were subject to both physical and sexual abuse by SS camp guards. The pink triangle was made 2 centimeters larger than any of the other identification triangles, so that guards and other prisoners could clearly see when a homosexual prisoner was approaching. Most fellow prisoners shunned the homosexuals, leaving them isolated and powerless within the prison hierarchy. Gays were treated with particular contempt not just by the SS and camp guards, but also many other inmates and inmate groups who regarded them as degenerate perverts. Camp life was a solitary existence, making it difficult for homosexuals to survive not only physically, but mentally as well for any period of time. Homosexuals in these camps were almost always assigned to the worst and often most dangerous work in an effort to regain their masculinity. They generally worked longer hours with fewer breaks and often on reduced rations, causing many to die of exhaustion and starvation. They were also punished for various misdemeanors in horrible and deadly ways, and were selected for dangerous medical experiments, including attempting to rid gay men of their homosexual tendencies by the surgical insertion of testosterone capsules. Anyone found with his underclothes on in bed or his hand under his blanket, there were checks almost every night, was taken outside and had several bowls of water poured over him before being left standing outside for a good hour. Only a few people survived this treatment. We who wore the pink triangle were prioritized for medical experiments, and these generally ended in death. Heinz Heger. The homosexual victims of the Holocaust were persecuted and terrorized for weakening Germany in several ways, according to the Nazis, including the inability to produce German children, the possible corruption of youth, their tendency to group together, and endangering the morality of the German public. The main goal of Nazi Germany was to create a pure Aryan society. Homosexuals can't produce children together, and according to German law, could then be considered criminals. They were also considered weak and unfit to be soldiers. Nazis not only victimized homosexuals because of their inability to produce future Germans, but also extended this notion to their effect on the existing German youth. Nazis felt German youth could easily be corrupted by homosexuality. Nazis believed that homosexuality could give rise to a dangerous state within the state because homosexuals were believed to form self-serving groups. The Nazis asserted that for the good of the state and German public, that homosexuality must be eradicated. Paragraph 175 was the law that proclaimed homosexuality a crime and allowed gays to be arrested and imprisoned. It was only shortly after the Nazis became the only legal party in the Third Reich that homosexual men and women became the target of police raids and interrogations. When the Nazis gained total control, the act was adjusted to include further punishment for homosexual men, and the code was used as the main instrument to arrest both known homosexuals and later men suspected of homosexual acts. By 1838, German courts ruled that any contact between men deemed to have sexual intent, even simple looking or simple touching, could be grounds for arrest and conviction. By 1944, all that was required for an arrest was merely a suggestion of homosexuality. So many more men found themselves arrested and imprisoned in prisons, mental health centers, and concentration camps. The updated Paragraph 175 included different parts to address different issues that could be considered criminal and the punishments for these misdemeanors. According to Paragraph 175 of the German Penal Code, a male who commits acts with another male or permits himself to be so abused shall be punished by imprisonment. Confinement in a penitentiary is not to exceed 10 years, and under circumstances, imprisonment for not less than 3 months shall be imposed. Acts contrary to nature between human beings and animals shall be punished by imprisonment. Loss of civil rights may also be imposed. One homosexual male victim by the name of Richard Grun decided to share his story with the world. Richard Grun was an artist who was arrested in December 1934 and under interrogation admitted to being homosexual. He was held in protective custody for 5 months. Then, in September 1936, Grun was convicted and sentenced to prison for 1 year and 3 months, minus time already served in protective custody. In early October 1937, Grun was sent to the Sachsenhausen concentration camp, where he remained until being transferred to the Flossenburg camp in early April 1940. Grun himself remained in the Flossenburg camp until 1945. Richard Grun's desire to bring attention to the terror of the concentration camps led to the 1947 publication of his lithographs. His work generally reflects what he experienced at the Sachsenhausen and Flossenburg concentration camps. The portfolio is among the most important visual recordings of the daily nightmare of the Nazi concentration camps to appear in the immediate post-war years. The homosexual victims of the Holocaust can be analyzed by their treatment in camps, reasons for persecution, paragraph 175, and Richard Grun's story. During the Holocaust, life for homosexuals was full of struggle. Between the fear of being convicted and imprisoned and actually being sent to a camp or a prison, it was just one torture after another. With all the gay hatred and degradation, many homosexuals in concentration camps committed suicide by running into electric perimeter fences rather than facing the ongoing persecution. These men and women suffered in such terrible ways and continued to be persecuted and regarded as degenerates even after the liberation, while all the other victims received such sympathy. In memory of the homosexual men that suffered here, there were 650 Rosenwinkel prisoners in the Buchenwald concentration camp between 1937 and 1945. Many of them lost their lives. This is only one of many of the memorials that are finally beginning to acknowledge the homosexuals as victims, and it's essential that all of us continue to raise awareness of their experiences. With the numbers of homosexual survivors dwindling, their voices may fade, but a new generation must continue to speak out on their behalf so that no one will ever forget.
war nie jeden Mann gelacht, Augen blieb gelingen Hand und Fallingsbreit, dessen Hütten muss, der Frasse ist Schluss, von des Wustens, des ist der Freit.